Most outdoorsmen enjoy a good campfire. Besides making your food warm and tasty, it's just good fun and fellowship to spend time around a fire with your friends. In this video, we're going to show you how to build a small campfire. This will help your cookout night in the woods with your cabin during your week at summer camp. This is Louie. My name is Merlin. We are both volunteer staff at Camp Cedar Brook, Texas. Let us start by understanding two important physical properties of fire. The first one is called the fire triangle. Skilled outdoorsmen and every trained firefighter know that it takes three things to make a fire: heat, fuel, and oxygen. All three have to be present and balanced in the right amounts. Take one or more of them away, and that fire goes out. The second important property of fire is that heated air rises. When it does, cooler air gets sucked in at the bottom to fill the void left behind. That means it is hot above the fire and much cooler off to the side at the base of the fire. Remember these two properties, fire triangle and that hot air rises, and your fire skills will improve. God has uniquely given humans the ability to make fire. No other animals can do this. Fire is a very useful and powerful tool, but if it gets out of control, it can also be very dangerous. Life lesson alert. Pay attention. You will see that privileges and responsibilities go hand in hand. When it comes to fire, you are totally responsible for the fire that you create from the time you strike that match until your fire is totally out, cold, and safe again. Stop and think about that every time before you light a fire. Do not play with fire. You are responsible. Also, please make sure you have adult supervision to keep you and everyone safe, and make sure you have permission from the landowner. Signs come in a wide variety of styles, so pay attention to them. Another life lesson alert, especially when doing something new or possibly dangerous. Always stop for a moment and think. Can anyone get hurt doing this? If yes, then recognize how that can happen. Take steps to prevent it. Regarding fire, let's discuss three possible hazards: your fire getting out of control, burns, and damaging the earth. Make sure conditions such as wind, drought, and relative humidity are safe enough that you can guarantee that you will keep your fire under control. Sometimes, like during a burn ban, it would be illegal to build a fire. Other times, you're merely advised against building a fire. But always use the brain that God gave you. Be responsible. Choose wisely. Life lesson alert: just because you can does not mean that you should or that you want to. After you've made sure conditions are good, next choose a location with no flammable materials within 6 feet to the side of your fire or up to 12 feet above your fire. Be sure and look up. Remember, heat rises.
This might look really nice and cozy, but as you can see, there's no space above it. Bad idea.
This is a much better location. Notice, lots of space above, lots of space around it. We have a shovel and a garden hose. We have all the materials we need to put out a fire if things start getting out of control. Always make sure you have good firefighting tools right there with you before light it up. At camp, that means a shovel and a bucket of water. Ask yourself, if this starts to get out of control, how am I going to put it out? Also, never leave your fire unattended, even for a little while. It must always be carefully watched or totally put out. Nothing in between. No exceptions. If you're not careful, there are several ways you could get burned while working with a campfire. Let's learn how to avoid these hazards. Matches burn quickly up to your fingers. Light what you need to light, and then remember to put it down and let go soon. Ow! When adding wood to a fire that is already burning, reach in low from the side, not from straight above. That nice metal fire pit gets hot. Do not touch it. Sooner or later, you will have to rearrange parts of the fire by poking it with a metal fire tool or maybe a stick. Whatever item you used will now be hot and dangerous. So, Before poking, discuss a plan with your supervising adult for where that tool is going to go after you are done with it. Please be very careful to prevent this from ever happening. But if part of your clothes do catch on fire, remember the phrase stop, drop, and roll. You cannot run away from those flames. You will only fan them with more oxygen and make the fire worse. So stop moving, drop to the ground, cover your face with your hands, and roll over and over to smother the flames out. Note, if this happens to a very young child, you may have to tackle them and roll with them. Okay then, now that we know how to keep our fire under control, and we know how to avoid getting burned, let's cover one more fire hazard: environmental damage. When you build a fire directly on the ground, you scorch that patch of the earth because it gets very hot. Even if you brush away all of the flammable materials before your fire, and then put them back after your fire, plants will not grow again in that spot for a very long time. At Camp Cedarbrook, we avoid this issue by using portable fire pits that keep the hot fire up off the ground by a safe distance. That is how we do cookout fires at summer camp. However, in some places, landowners often designate particular locations where they allow fires to be built on the ground. These spots are usually surrounded by rocks or bricks to safely help contain the fire. As long as everyone builds their fires in the same spot, it will be the only place that has environmental impact, and the landowner has already accepted that as being okay. Here are some quick topics you need to think about before you gather wood and build your fire. What is the purpose of your fire? Do you need flames for singing and fellowship, or do you need coals for cooking? How big does your fire really need to be? How long does it need to burn? Based on answers to the above questions, make sure you have enough of the right size wood in order to be successful. You can't just take a large piece of wood and touch a match to it. Pretty quickly you'll see this is not going to work. You don't have enough heat. Instead, you will need 3 different sizes of wood to build your fire. Your smallest wood is called tinder. Tinder is small enough that you can light it easily with a match. Good tinder is smaller than a pencil and breaks easily with a nice clean snap. When you find a good source, gather more tinder than you think you will need. Avoid breaking them too short. Next up, you will need kindling. This is roughly pencil size up to the thickness of your thumbs. Good kindling is dead and well seasoned. It will break cleanly with a snap. Avoid green wood as well as rotten wood. Don't break them any shorter than you have to. Gather plenty before you light any matches. A word about the small stuff that you're using. Stuff like this might look like it's nice and dead and good fire building materials, but it's green, and as Louie is going to demonstrate here, if you try to break it and it doesn't snap cleanly, don't use it to start a fire. That's an example of something that works correctly. It should have a definite snap, come completely apart. That is good wood for fire building. Any wood bigger than your thumbs is considered to be fuel, and it provides the flames for singing or the coals for cooking. It takes a lot of heat to ignite this larger wood, but kindling can provide that heat. Of course, you still need to begin with smaller fuel and work your way up to larger fuel, depending upon the needs and purpose for your campfire. A skilled outdoorsman can build a campfire with nothing but natural materials and a match or two. Beginners, however, might need a little extra help by using some aids that we call fire starters. The fire starters we use at Camp Cedarbrook are homemade by volunteer staff using recycled cardboard egg cartons, wood shavings, and paraffin wax. They do not fall apart in Texas heat. They are easy to light on fire, and they burn quite hot for a few minutes. They are difficult to put out once they get going. If you're a beginner at fire building, please feel free to use one of these fire starters. If, however, you have already done this a few times, challenge yourself and improve your skills. Kilt graduates must build a fire with only 2 matches and no fire starter. There are 3 common shapes to stack firewood when building a campfire. Teepee, which is cone-shaped like Native American shelters, or log cabin, rectangular like the Western settlers built, or a lean-to like the one we're using in this video. With a lean-to, you lean small pieces of wood up against a larger log. Regardless of the shape that you build, remember to leave a place to reach in with a flaming match so that you can hold it under your tinder and light it. Also, I recommend that you practice that reaching in before you actually light the match. Striking matches takes some practice. Hold the match close to the chemical head, but be ready to move your fingers back quickly as it ignites. Always strike the match away from you. Flaming pieces might come flying off of it, or the whole flaming match could slip out of your fingers. As it ignites, tilt it downward slightly for a short period of time so that the wooden part of the match starts burning and not just the chemical head. Warning, you're trying to get the match to burn, not your fingers. Heat rises. If there is any wind, you might have to carefully cup your hands around the match to shield it while it gets going. If you're using a lean-to style fire, the larger log can help act as a windbreak. Get the match burning strongly first, then use it to light your tinder. It's going to be very fragile while it's small, easy to disrupt and lose your fire entirely. Have to balance the fire triangle physics. Fuel has to be close enough together to share heat, but far enough apart to allow the fire to breathe and get oxygen. As you get more and more heat, you can use larger and larger fuel. Remember to add wood by reaching in low from the sides.
Fire starters make it a lot easier to light a fire because the fire starter itself has lots and lots of energy in it. You're not likely to go out once you get the fire starter going. A good thing to remember is you want to have plenty of wood stacked nearby before you start your fire so that you don't have to get up and walk away and find more wood, because your fire will go out while you're getting more wood. In this case, we had plenty of wood stacked nearby and within easy reach. Okay, when you're done with your cookout, you have to put out the fire. Since you're normally in the woods a fair distance from water, you don't want to just take the bucket and dump it into the fire. You could do that, but it's not very effective and you might not get it all the way out. So, we're going to use a technique called sprinkle and stir. You start by spreading the fire a little bit so that it's, remember, heat, fuel, oxygen. By adding water, you're trying to remove the heat. And by breaking up the fire and spreading it out, then they don't share the heat between the pieces that are still burning, and it's easier to put out.
Sprinkle water, stir the coals, find the hot spots, repeat until it is out cold enough you can stick your hand in any part of it, and then it is no longer dangerous.
You can use your hand at a distance to test for hot spots, but add more water, sprinkle it and stir it, and you're getting a lot of fire put out using very little water.
Repeat until it is out cold enough you can stick your hand in any part of it, and then it is no longer dangerous. Thank you for watching. Hope this has helped you become a safer and more accomplished fire builder. Stay safe, and please come join us at Camp Cedarbrook, Texas.